Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, everyone. Today's episode illustrates both a change in temperature and a change in phase of a given system. It is an application of the law of thermal energy exchange between a hot body and a cold body that achieve thermal equilibrium. So stick around for more details. Watch and learn. And the problem is a copper calorimeter can with mass 0.446 kilogram contains 0.0950 kilogram of ice. The system is initially at zero point 0 degrees Celsius. Question. Letter A. If 0.0350 kilogram of steam at 100.0 degrees Celsius and 1.00 atmosphere pressure is added to the can, what is the final temperature of the calorimeter can and its contents? Question letter B. At the final temperature, how many kilograms are there of ice, how many of liquid water, and how many of steam? Shown in the diagram is a schematic diagram of a typical calorimeter. Take note that a calorimeter is assumed to be perfectly insulated so that uh, heat exchange with the surrounding is considered negligible or none at all. We are given the mass of the copper calorimeter denoted by small m sub c, which is equal to 0.446 kilogram. The mass of ice, m sub I, which is 0.0950 kilogram, and of course, the mass of the steam, m sub s, equal to 0.0350 kilogram. The steam is initially at a temperature equal to 100 degrees Celsius, right? While the initial temperature of the calorimeter, all right, and the ice is 0 0.0 degrees Celsius. And our target variables for part A, the final equilibrium temperature denoted by capital T, and in part B, all right, at this final temperature, capital T, all right, we are to determine the mass of each of the contents, the steam, the liquid water, and the ice. We start our computations by finding Q1, or the energy given up by the steam for it to condense at 100 degrees Celsius and at 1 atmosphere pressure, using the formula Q1 equals the product of the mass of the steam and a constant known as the heat of condensation, capital L sub C. So substituting, we get Q1 equals 0.0350 kilogram multiplied by 2.256 raised to the 6th power joules per kilogram, which will give us the amount of Q1 equal to 7.90 raised to the 4th power joules. Next, we also find Q2, which represents the amount of thermal energy that is also liberated by the condensed steam, which is now in liquid form, for it to cool down to the equilibrium temperature, capital T. That is, Q2 is just equal to the product of the mass of the condensed steam, which is now in liquid form. All right. So M sub W pertains to the mass of the liquid water, and then multiply it by a constant called specific heat, denoted by small letter c. And then to be multiplied by the delta T, or change in temperature. Conventionally, when we say delta T, it means final temperature minus initial temperature. But here, we represent delta T as the initial temperature, which is 100.0 degrees Celsius, minus the final temperature, capital T. All right? This is to have delta T that is positive. So when you substitute, Q2 is equal to 0.0350 kilogram multiplied by 4,190 joules per kilogram per Celsius degree. This is the specific heat of liquid water. And then, of course, multiplied by quantity 100.0 degrees Celsius minus capital T, which when simplified, we have the expression for Q2 equal to 14,665 joules minus 146 joules per Celsius degree multiplied by the unknown variable, capital T. We then proceed in computing Q3. Q3 represents the energy that is absorbed by the ice for it to completely melt at 0.0 degrees Celsius and at 1 atmosphere pressure. This energy is actually part of the energy that is liberated by the steam. So we use the formula Q3 equals the product of the mass of the ice and another constant known as the latent heat of fusion of ice. All right. So we use this formula if there is a change in phase, specifically from solid to liquid, such as melting of ice. There is no temperature change involved. So substituting, we get Q3 equals 0.0950 kilogram multiplied by the value of the heat of fusion for ice, 3.34 raised to the 5th power joules per kilogram, which give us the amount of Q3 equal to 3.17 raised to the 4th power joules. And then we also find Q4. Q4 represents the amount of thermal energy that is also absorbed, this time by the melted ice. So when ice melts, it's now in the form of liquid water. So the mass of the melted ice or the water multiplied by the specific heat of the liquid water, denoted by small letter c, and then multiplied by the usual definition of delta T, final temperature minus initial, or capital T minus 0.0 degrees Celsius. That is, completing our substitution, Q4 equals 0.0950 kilogram multiplied by 4,190 joules per kilogram per Celsius degree, and then multiplied by quantity T minus 0.0 degrees Celsius. Doing our math, we get Q4 equals 398.1 joules per kilogram or per Celsius degree, and then multiplied by the unknown variable, capital T. Lastly, we compute the amount of energy that is also absorbed by the calorimeter can in order for it to raise its temperature to the equilibrium temperature, capital T. And we use the formula Q5 equals the product of the mass of the calorimeter and the specific heat of the material which the calorimeter is made of, and that is copper. And of course, multiplied by delta T, final temperature minus initial, or capital T minus 0.0 degrees Celsius. That is, Q5 equals 0.446 kilogram multiplied by 390 joules per kilogram Celsius degree, or per Celsius degree, and then times the unknown variable, capital T. So we get Q5 equal to 173.94 joules per Celsius degree times the unknown variable, capital T. We now apply the law of conservation of energy, sometimes referred to as the law of thermal energy exchange, using our notations for the different amounts of thermal energy liberated or absorbed. All right, the law states that the sum of Q1 and Q2 must be equal to the sum of Q3, Q4, and Q5. That is, when we substitute, the value of Q1 computed earlier, okay, is equal to 7.90 raised to the fourth power joules. And the value of Q2 is 1.47 raised to the fourth power joules minus 0.0146 raised to the fourth power joules per Celsius degree times the unknown variable, capital T. Right? So notice that the values for Q1 and Q2 are in red colors. And on the other side, we have Q3. Q3 equals 3.17 raised to the fourth power joules. Q4 is 0.0398 raised to the fourth power joules per Celsius degree times capital T, and Q5 is 0.0174 raised to the fourth power joules per Celsius degree multiplied by capital T. And when simplified, this long equation will be reduced to 6.20 raised to the fourth power joules equal to 718 joules per Celsius degree multiplied by the unknown variable capital T. And dividing 6.20 to the fourth power joules by 718 joules per Celsius degree, we find the value of the unknown variable capital T equal to 86.4 degrees Celsius in three significant figures. We call this the thermal equilibrium temperature, which is our answer to question letter A. And last but not the least, answering question letter B, how many kilograms of the steam is left in the can? And how many of the liquid water and how many of the ice is left in the can the moment thermal equilibrium is achieved by the system? So our answer is that the only content left is liquid water, because at the thermal equilibrium temperature we computed earlier, okay, all the original steam has been turned into liquid water, and also all the original ice has been melted into liquid water as well. So there is no more steam, there is no more ice. And that the mass of the liquid water is just the original mass of the ice plus the original mass of the steam equal to the sum of 0.0950 kilogram and 0.0350 kilogram, which amounts to 0.130 kilogram. So the calorimeter and the liquid water do not exchange thermal energy anymore because they have achieved what we call thermal equilibrium. So that concludes our tutorial for this topic. Till the next episode, mabuhay, Masya Allah. Thank you very much for your indulgence. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel